I see you ain't got shit to do but hate on me, huh? In a minute, I'ma f you up, cuz, on some real shit. Not physically, but business-wise. Cause you broke as a motherfucker right now, so I'ma f you up in a minute, cuz. Leave me alone. Leave me the f alone.
You didn't put that on the internet.
Leave me alone, cuz. I'ma f up. Leave me alone.
In hip-hop, family feuds hit different, but when it's between two death row legends who share blood, things get real complicated real fast. This situation involves Snoop Dogg and his cousin Daz Dillinger, and it's about way more than just family drama. We're talking millions of dollars, music publishing rights, trademark disputes, and a catalog that could sell for $1 billion. This goes way deeper than what you saw on social media. Here's what actually went down. To understand this, you gotta know where Snoop and Daz came from. These two are real-life cousins who built their careers together at Death Row Records back in the early 90s. Snoop Dogg became the face of the West Coast with Doggy Style in 1993, while Daz was right there as one half of Tha Dog Pound and a producer who helped shape that Death Row sound. They weren't just family, they were brothers in the game.
Death Row's in the house!
Death Row's gonna be the biggest record company there is.
The master plan was to take over the world.
All of the greatest artists came together at one time, and it was like a comet streaking across the sky.
Next year, Death Row gonna start printing our own money.
But their relationship had cracks even back then. In a 2013 interview with Noisy, Snoop opened up about cutting family members out, saying he taught Daz everything he knew and put him in the game. But Daz went against him. That's the older cousin mentality right there, feeling like the younger one owed him something. Daz never. Fast forward to February 2022, and Snoop made a major power move. He acquired Death Row Records from MNRK Music Group, which was controlled by Blackstone investment firm. This wasn't just buying a brand, this was Snoop taking control of the label that launched his career. He paid an undisclosed amount for the Death Row name and eventually got his hands on parts of the music catalog too.
Rap icon Snoop Dogg now owns the record label that propelled him to stardom. Death Row Records released Snoop Dogg's classic debut album back in 1993, along with hits from Dr. Dre and Tupac. The label filed for bankruptcy in 2006, eventually falling into the hands of a private equity fund who sold it to Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg has officially gone from hip-hop icon to hip-hop mogul. This week, the rapper purchased Death Row Records, the record label that actually launched his career. Chuck Creekmur is co-founder of allhiphop.com.
I felt like it was the ultimate boss move, particularly for an artist, someone who's traditionally known as an artist. But we know Snoop has grown so much since his 1993 debut, Doggy Style.
In a statement, Snoop says it's an extremely meaningful moment for him, and he believes the label has immense untapped future value.
Snoop was feeling nostalgic about the whole thing, talking about how it felt good to have ownership of the label he was part of at the beginning. He saw immense untapped value in the brand. This deal happened right before the Super Bowl halftime show, where Snoop performed with Dr. Dre, Eminem, Kendrick Lamar, and Mary J. Blige. The timing was perfect for Snoop, but for Daz, it was the beginning of major problems. Here's where it gets interesting. When Snoop took over Death Row, he had plans. Big plans. In 2024, Snoop and Daz worked together on Tha Dog Pound's album called WAWG, which stands for We All We Got. The album dropped through Death Row, and on the surface, everything looked cool between the cousins. But behind closed doors, tensions were building over one thing: money and control.
Well, my little brother had passed away, and one thing about my little brother is that he loved the f out of Daz, and he loved us together. And to honor him, my mission was to, I started calling family members after that. And,
he was calling.
Yeah.
He was attacking me.
Oh, that's killing you.
Yeah, because they know we supposed to be together. We got family that love.
Me and Snoop, we cousins, but we like brothers. We grew up together.
So family know that we family, so when we not right, they know we not right. And they don't want to pick sides.
Yeah.
Like they supposed to.
The situation started boiling over in late November 2025. During an interview on the Punchline Academy podcast, Daz explained that Snoop kicked him off Death Row. According to Daz, the breaking point came when he refused to sign his publishing rights over to Snoop. Daz said he realized something was wrong when he didn't get invited to a recent Death Row performance. When he asked about it, allegedly, Snoop made it clear if Daz wasn't signing his catalog over, he wasn't part of the team anymore.
The album came out on Death Row.
Okay.
And then I got kicked off of Death Row again. from Snoop. Damn. Got into it. Me and Snoop, it's my cousin. We get into it all the time. He kicked me off. So, I ain't going back this time.
Yeah, you ain't going back? So, because obviously you guys are related. So, what is that conversation like? Because you're like, no, you. And then you guys still got to talk later on.
He did a show and didn't take me. So I figured, like, why what's going on? He's just like, you ain't signed your catalog over to me. And I'm like, I'm keeping it, you know what I'm saying? It's worth a lot.
Daz told the hosts his publishing was worth a lot, and he wasn't giving it up. He said he was happy as long as his house was paid for, and he kept getting his royalties from Tupac's music and his other work, but Snoop wanted more control, and Daz wasn't budging. Then, things escalated quick. Over Thanksgiving weekend in 2025, Daz went to Instagram and started calling out his cousin publicly.
This is another question being asked. Why the Dog Pound album wasn't really, that came out, we got that album. The reason why is Snoop didn't want me to produce anything on that album because he had to deal with all the producers where he get half of what he giving them. So I'm gonna give you this money, but I'm getting half of the publishing like that. I don't want Daz producing. No, I just want him to be an artist, man. That's what he wanted me to be on Death Row. He wanted to do a solo album on me, but he didn't want me to produce it. Death Row Records stealing from me. Stole from me.
He posted about how Snoop didn't want him producing anything on the WAWG album because Snoop had a deal with all the producers where he got half of what he gave them. According to Daz, Snoop only wanted him as an artist, not as a producer, so Snoop could make more money off the production deals. But that's not even the craziest part. On Monday, December 1st, 2025, Daz posted a video on his YouTube channel making some explosive allegations.
Okay, so you own everything, so that's all your stuff. Now, you were saying something about the paw. Now, what are you talking about with the paw?
Well, like I was saying, the paw is trademarked. Like I told Snoop, you got rejected and I got accepted. You know what I'm saying? So that was the moneymaker. The paw is like the Apple sign, like I said before. And like I said, they tried to go behind my back and trademark all my work.
Now, what do you mean by selling? He said he was going to sell it, or what? They're selling Death Row, the new Death Row that just came?
Snoop, everything Snoop involved with, he gonna sell all that for $1 billion. His cash is out for their catalog. And then he sell that and he just start over and make new music.
He claimed Snoop went behind his back and tried to trademark The Dog Pound's iconic paw logo and other intellectual property that Daz created. Daz said the paw was trademarked and compared it to the Apple logo in terms of value. He accused Snoop of trying to trademark all his work so he could package it up and sell the entire Death Row catalog to Universal Music for $1 billion. Days went in on the details, saying Snoop tried to flaunt it in his face, acting like he had everything locked down. Daz also brought up royalties, claiming that since Snoop bought Death Row, he hasn't paid anybody their publishing. He accused Snoop of using their royalties to pay Death Row staff, with the staff making more money than the actual artists. Daz said Snoop was trying to starve artists out, but it wouldn't work on him because he's independent. This wasn't just talk either. Daz mentioned he sued Suge Knight back in the day over similar issues, and he was now considering doing the same thing to his own cousin. He brought up how Snoop promised to give everybody back their publishing when he bought Death Row, but according to Daz, that was a lie. Now this is when things really popped off. On December 3rd, 2025, Snoop Dogg saw everything Daz was saying online, and he clapped back hard. Snoop posted a video to social media where he went directly at his cousin.
I see you ain't got to do but hate on me, huh? In a minute, I'm gonna you up, cuz, on some real not physically, but business-wise. Cause you broke as a right now, so I'm gonna you up in a minute, cuz. Leave me alone. Leave me the alone.
You didn't put that on the internet.
Leave me alone, cuz. I'm gonna up. Leave me alone.
In the video, Snoop said Daz didn't have anything to do but hate on him. Then Snoop made a threat, saying in a minute he was going to mess Daz up, not physically, but business-wise. Snoop called Daz broke and told him to leave him alone. The tone was dismissive, but also threatening. For someone like Snoop, who's worth hundreds of millions and has connections throughout the industry, saying he's going to mess someone up business-wise isn't an empty threat. That's the kind of statement that can affect careers, deals, and money. Within hours of Snoop's video dropping, social media went crazy. The Art of Dialogue Dialogue posted both videos on Twitter, and hip-hop fans immediately started picking sides. Some people defended Snoop, saying he paid for Death Row and has the right to run it however he wants. Others sided with Daz, arguing that artists should own their own work, and Snoop was moving foul by trying to take what Daz created. Daz responded to Snoop's video on Instagram that same day. He wrote in all caps that Snoop was mad because Daz called him out. Daz repeated his claims about Snoop trying to steal everything he owned from Death Row through forged signatures and not paying royalties. He brought up how Snoop uses their royalties to pay his staff, with the staff making more than the artists. Daz ended by asking if he should sue Snoop the same way he sued Suge Knight, saying everything was in his name and the publishing numbers don't change unless someone's a thief. The situation caught the attention of major hip-hop media outlets. Hip Hop DX, Hot New Hip Hop, The Source, and multiple iHeart radio stations all covered the beef within 24 hours. The story was everywhere because it involved two Death Row legends and touched on issues that matter to every artist in the game: ownership, royalties, and control. Other hip-hop figures started weighing in on social media, though most were careful not to take direct sides, since both Snoop and Daz are respected in the industry. The conversation became bigger than just these two cousins. People started talking about how labels treat artists, even when those labels are run by former artists themselves. Radio stations and podcasts discussed whether Snoop was moving like the old Death Row executives who exploited artists, or if Daz was just being difficult and ungrateful. The Breakfast Club, Joe Budden podcast, and other platforms had debates about who was right. Some hosts pointed out that Daz had been vocal about disputes for years, going back to his issues with Dr. Dre about royalties from The Chronic. Back in 2023, Daz had posted on Instagram celebrating the 31st anniversary of The Chronic, but also questioning Dr. Dre about royalty payments he believed were still owed. So this pattern of Daz speaking out about money wasn't new. But with Snoop now in the position of power at Death Row, the family dynamic made everything more complicated and more painful. The situation also brought up memories of the original Death Row drama. Fans remembered how Suge Knight ran Death Row like a prison, allegedly not paying artists properly and using intimidation tactics. People wondered if history was repeating itself with Snoop now in Suge's old position. That comparison had to sting for Snoop, who built his career partly on being different from Suge. The immediate consequences of this public beef were significant. The relationship between Snoop and Daz, already strained for years, appeared to be completely broken. These weren't just business partners beefing. This was family turning against family over money and pride. For Daz, going public with his accusations was a risk. Snoop has massive influence in the industry. He's got deals with major brands, networks, and labels. He performed at the Olympics, coaches on The Voice, and has relationships with everyone from Dr. Dre to Martha Stewart. When someone with that level of power says they're gonna mess you up business-wise, they have the tools to do it. But Daz wasn't backing down. He filed for copyright reversion on his work, which is a legal process that allows the original creator to reclaim ownership or rights to work that was transferred to someone else after 35 years. This meant that even if Snoop owned Death Row, Daz was fighting to get back the rights to music he created in the 90s. That's a smart legal move that shows Daz understood the game and wasn't just complaining online. The trademark dispute over Thaw Dog Pound's paw logo was particularly messy. Daz claimed that logo was his creation and compared its value to the Apple logo. If Snoop was really trying to trademark it without Daz's permission, that's a serious intellectual property issue that could end up in court. Trademarks represent millions in merchandise and branding opportunities. The allegations about Snoop planning to sell the Death Row catalog for $1 billion to Universal Music added another layer to the story. In 2024, Snoop and Death Row had signed publishing deals with Reservoir Media, covering Snoop's entire catalog and the Death Row publishing catalog, including classic Tupac tracks. These deals showed Snoop was actively monetizing Death Row's legacy, and if $1 billion sale was really in the works, that would explain why he wanted full control of everything. For Thaw Dog Pound as a group, this beef created uncertainty. The WAWG album had just come out in 2024, and fans were expecting more music. But with Snoop and Daz at war, future Dog Pound projects seemed unlikely. Corrupt, the other half of Thaw Dog Pound, was caught in the middle of his partner's beef. The public perception of Snoop took a hit among some fans. For years, Snoop built an image as the cool uncle of hip-hop, someone who brought people together and stayed above the drama. Seeing him threaten his own cousin over business made some people question that image. Comments on social media pointed out the irony of Snoop, who complained about not being paid properly by Suge Knight, now being accused of the same thing by Daz. On the flip side, some people saw Daz as someone who was always complaining and starting problems. They pointed to his past beefs with Suge, Dr. Dre, and now Snoop as evidence that maybe Daz was the common denominator. In 2023, Daz had said on Instagram that he and and Snoop had been feuding because the older cousin was trying to punk the little cousin, but Daz wasn't going for it. The legal implications were serious. If Daz followed through on his threat to sue Snoop like he sued Suge, this could turn into a years-long court battle. Lawsuits over music rights and royalties often drag on forever and cost millions in legal fees. Both cousins have deep enough pockets to fight it out in court, which meant this situation could get much worse before it got better. But here's what most people missed in all the social media drama. This beef is really about power dynamics that have existed in hip-hop since the beginning. Death Row Records was founded in 1992 by Dr. Dre, Suge Knight, the DOC, and Dick Griffey. From day one, the label had issues with how artists were treated and how money was distributed. Suge Knight became infamous for allegedly not paying artists properly and using intimidation to control people. When Death Row went bankrupt in 2006 after Suge's legal problems piled up, the label changed hands multiple times. Wide Awake Entertainment bought it in 2009, then Entertainment One got it in 2013. Then Hasbro acquired it as part of buying Entertainment One in 2019. Finally, Blackstone got it before selling it to Snoop in 2022. Each time Death Row changed owners, artists like Daz lost a little more control over their own work. Sources close to the situation say the real issue isn't just about Snoop versus Daz. It's about how the entire music industry treats producers and artists differently. Daz was a producer first, creating beats and sounds that defined the Death Row era. But producers often don't get the same recognition or royalties as rappers. When Snoop bought Death Row, he bought it as a rapper who became a mogul. That shift in power meant Daz, the producer, was now working for Snoop, the rapper turned executive. The billion-dollar catalog sale that Daz mentioned isn't just speculation. In recent years, music catalogs have been selling for insane amounts of money. Bruce Springsteen sold his catalog for $500 million. Bob Dylan got over $300 million. If Death Row's catalog includes classic albums from Snoop, Tupac, Dr. Dre, and Dogg Pound, $1 billion price tag isn't unrealistic. Universal Music has been one of the biggest buyers of catalogs, so Daz's claim about Snoop negotiating with Universal makes sense. What complicates everything is that not all Death Row masters were included when Snoop bought the label. Dr. Dre's lawyer confirmed in 2022 that Dre still owned The Chronic, which came back to streaming services in 2023 under Dre's control. Tupac's estate also has complex arrangements regarding his music, so when Snoop talks about owning Death Row, he doesn't necessarily own every song ever released on the label. That's why getting artists like Daz to sign over their rights was so important to Snoop if he wanted to do a complete catalog sale. The fact that Snoop allegedly offered to give producers half of what he paid them for production on the WAWG album shows how he's thinking about money now. As the label owner, he wanted a cut of everything. That's standard business practice for labels. But when you're dealing with your cousin who helped build the sound you came up with, it feels personal. Daz wasn't some random producer. He was family and a founding member of Dogg Pound. There's also the historical beef between Snoop and Daz that goes back way further than people realize. In 2013, when Snoop talked about cutting Daz out, that was over a decade ago. They've had multiple falling outs and reconciliations over the years. Every time they work together again, old resentments come back up. The fact that Daz said in 2023 that he beat people up for Snoop, but Snoop never beat people up for him shows the kind of one-sided loyalty Daz felt he'd shown over the years. The trademark issue with the paw logo touches on something bigger too. When artists create brands and imagery, who actually owns it? The Dogg Pound's paw was everywhere in the 90s, on merchandise, album covers, videos. If Daz created that logo, he has a legitimate claim to it. But if it was created while he was signed to Death Row under Suge Knight, the ownership gets murky. These are the kinds of details that lawyers argue about for years in court. As of today, December 3rd, 2025, the beef between Snoop and Daz is at its peak. Both cousins posted videos calling each other out within hours of each other. Neither one is backing down. Snoop made it clear he sees Daz as broke and will mess him up business-wise. Daz made it clear he's considering a lawsuit and won't be starved out because he's independent. The situation is developing fast. Social media is still buzzing with reactions, and more hip-hop media outlets are covering the story every day. The Art of Dialogue, which posted both videos, has been following up with more content and commentary. Hip-hop fans are watching closely to see if this turns into a full legal battle or if the family finds a way to work it out privately. The timing of all this couldn't be worse for Snoop's business plans. He's been working hard to position Death Row as a premium brand worth serious money. In 2023, Snoop talked about making Death Row the first major label in the metaverse, releasing NFTs and creating virtual experiences. He's been trying to prove that the Death Row name still has value in 2025, not just as nostalgia, but as an active business. But when one of your founding artists is publicly accusing you of theft and fraud, that damages the brand. Potential buyers look at situations like this and see risk. Legal disputes over royalties and publishing can tie up catalogs for years. If Snoop really is negotiating with Universal or another major label for a massive sale, Daz's accusations could complicate or even kill that deal. There's also the question of other Death Row artists watching this situation unfold. Corrupt, Lady of Rage, Nate Dogg's estate, and others who recorded for Death Row are seeing how Snoop is handling Daz. If they have their own concerns about royalties or rights, this public beef might encourage them to speak up too. Once one artist breaks the silence, others often follow. The family aspect makes everything more painful. In hip-hop, loyalty is everything. Snoop and Daz grew up together in Long Beach. They're not just cousins, they came from the same streets and built their careers side by side. For it to come to this, with public threats and lawsuits on the table, shows how much money can destroy relationships that seemed unbreakable. There hasn't been any statement from Death Row Records as a company. Snoop's management team hasn't issued an official response beyond his video. Daz hasn't announced any specific legal action yet, though he strongly hinted at it. The longer this goes on without resolution, the more likely it is to end up in court. Word is there might be more revelations coming. When beefs like this go public, people start talking, and more stories come out. Other Death Row artists might speak up about their own issues with how Snoop is running things, or people close to Snoop might share their side of the story and explain why Daz's claims aren't accurate. What started as a family dispute over publishing rights turned into something that's changing how people view Snoop Dogg's legacy. For someone who's been in the game for over 30 years and built a reputation as a cultural icon, having his own cousin accuse him of stealing and not paying royalties is a serious problem. Even if Snoop wins legally, the damage to his reputation in the hip-hop community could be lasting. For Daz, this is about more than just money. It's about respect and recognition. He's been saying for years that he doesn't get enough credit for his production work. He's pointed out that he ghost-produced parts of albums that other people got credit for. This beef with Snoop is his way of standing up and demanding what he believes he's owed, even if it means burning bridges with family. The bigger picture here is that this shows you how the music business really works. Even when artists become executives and buy their own labels, the same problems come up. Money, control, and ego get in the way of relationships. The promise of giving artists their publishing back often doesn't happen the way people expect. Catalogs get sold and resold, and the original creators can end up with nothing if they don't fight for their rights. People are still watching to see if Snoop and Daz will reconcile, or if this family feud will end up destroying both their relationship and potentially Thaw Dogg Pound's legacy. The next moves matter. If Daz files a lawsuit, this becomes a years-long legal battle. If Snoop follows through on his threat to mess Daz up business-wise, we might see Daz getting blocked from opportunities in the industry. This whole situation proves that in hip-hop, nothing stays private for long. When you've got issues with someone, especially over money, it's gonna come out eventually. And when it does, everybody picks a side and the internet becomes the courtroom. What we're seeing right now is two legends of West Coast hip-hop, two family members who came up together, going toe-to-toe over the very label that made them both famous. The irony isn't lost on anyone who knows the history. Snoop left Death Row back in 1998, specifically because of how Suge Knight was running things. He talked for years about how artists weren't getting paid properly and how the environment was toxic. Now, 27 years later, his own cousin is making similar accusations against him. That's the kind of full circle moment that makes people question everything. What makes this different from other hip-hop beefs is that there's no way for both sides to win here. In a regular rap beef, artists can diss each other, drop songs, and both benefit from the attention. But when it's about actual business and legal rights, someone's gonna lose. Either Snoop maintains control of Death Row and Daz walks away with nothing, or Daz wins in court and Snoop's plans for the label fall apart. There's no middle ground when you're fighting over ownership. So that's where we're at with this whole situation. Keep your eyes on how this develops, because it's far from over. More updates are coming as this situation evolves. This shows you how ownership and control in hip-hop can turn family into enemies, and how the fight for publishing rights and royalties never really ends, even decades after the music is made. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you think Snoop is wrong for how he's handling Death Row, or is Daz being ungrateful? Who do you side with in this beef? Drop your thoughts below. And if you want to stay updated on this situation and other hip-hop news, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.